He's a prototype infielder of the 1970s and 80s, a handsome guy, very talented. Eventually, was part of the biggest baseball trade of that era, and wherever you went, he had fans, he had followers, and he had talent to benefit any squad he was part of. So today we're talking about the very underrated and I think the very, very underappreciated Doug Flynn. Now, an American former professional baseball player, played in MLB from 75 to 85 as an infielder for the Reds, the Mets, the Rangers, the Expos, and the Tigers. Flynn was a member of two world title teams with the Reds in 75 and 76 and won a Gold Glove Award in 1980 as a member of the Mets after he came over to New York in the Seaver trade. Flynn was born and raised in Lexington, Kentucky. He attended Bryan Station High School, where he started in baseball, basketball, and football, playing quarterback on the 12-1 team. He went to University of Kentucky on a combination baseball basketball scholarship. While attending Kentucky, Flynn and some friends went to a Cincinnati Reds tryout camp in Somerset, Kentucky. Flynn made the cut. After one more tryout camp and yet another audition at Riverfront, the Reds signed him as an amateur free agent in 1971. Yes, he was a walk-on. Now, Flynn batted 245 with 6 home runs and 113 runs batted in over 3 seasons in the Reds farm system. Still, his glove impressed Reds manager Sparky Anderson. Despite having playing shortstop predominantly in the minors, Flynn went into spring training in 1975, battling Darrell Cheney, Dan Dreesen, and John Vukovic for an open third base job. He made the team, but as a utility infielder, and made his major league debut on April night against the Dodgers at short. Starting the following night, Flynn scored his first major league run after reaching on a force play in the fourth. 3 innings later, he chased Dodgers starter Rick Rhoden out of the game with his first career hit, a single to center. Now, he only batted just 172 with no home runs or RBIs in April, with Reds third baseman batting a combined 162. Anderson shifted perennial All-Star and former National League MVP Pete Rose the third, with George Foster taking over and left. The shift worked as the team won 108 games that season to storm to a first-place finish in the NL West by 20 games over the Dodgers. The reduced role also seemed to do Flynn's bat some good. Over the rest of the season, he batted 296 with 20 RBIs. He hit his first major league home run on May 21st against the Mets, a game in which Tom Seaver, ironically, was a losing pitcher. Now, Flynn saw semi-regular action early in the 76 season due to a back injury to Joe Morgan. During a 9-game stretch in June, Flynn batted 382. He ended up appearing in 93 games for the Big Red Machine, as they became affectionately called, and batted 283 with 1 home run and 20 RBIs. The Reds won the 75 and 76 World Series. Flynn's only postseason appearance in those years came as a defensive replacement in the 76 NL title series against the Phillies. Now, Flynn's role with the Reds decreased drastically in 77. Through June 12th, he appeared in only 36 games, mostly as a late-inning defensive replacement for Rose at third. Meanwhile, Tom Seaver was in a contract dispute with the Mets chairman, Mr. M. Donald Grant. On Wednesday, June 15, 77, Grant traded Seaver to the Reds for Steve Henderson, Dan Norman, Pat Zachary, and Flynn. Now, Flynn's playing time increased substantially upon his arrival in New York City, even though he just batted 191 with no home runs and 14 RBIs. Most of his playing time came at short, but he spent time at second as well. Following the campaign, the Mets reacquired former number 1 overall draft pick Tim Foley to play short, because Foley played with Montreal for a few seasons. Just as pitchers and catchers were reporting to spring training, the Mets sold a contract of second baseman Felix Mian to the Tayo Whales of the Nippon Pro Baseball League with the intention of using Flynn at second. He began the season at second but shifted to short when Foley injured his knee at the end of April. He returned there periodically throughout the remainder of the season. All told, he logged 430 innings at short, committing just 7 errors for a .968 fielding percentage. At second, he logged the league's second best fielding percentage, behind the Expos' Dave Cash at .986. With the bat, Flynn produced a modest .237 batting average with no home runs and 36 RBIs in the 8th spot of manager Joe Torre's batting order. However, he tied Lenny Randle and Joel Youngblood for the team lead with 8 triples. Now, Flynn's first home run as a Met was a three-run shot future Hall of Famer Gaylord Perry. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. That was quite a blast. It made Twib headlines. It was only his only career 4 RBI game. On June 12th, just 12 days shy of the second anniversary of the Midnight Massacre, Flynn hit the second home run, an inside the park 3-run homer against the Reds to cap off a 12-6 Mets victory. Flynn seemed to be at his best against his former club. A week earlier, he doubled in a tying run and later scored a go-ahead run in the Mets' 5-3 win over Cincinnati, and produced a .310 batting average with 7 RBIs against Reds pitching. All told, 1979 was Flynn's best offensive season, as he batted .243 with career highs in home runs 4, RBI 61. He also began to emerge as one of the better fielding second basemen in the National League. He led the league in putouts and double plays turned, and was third in the league with a .983 hitting percentage. Now, ironically, how this was occurring, a lot of people felt he would eventually end up with the Yankees or a contending team, but it never happened. Now, on August 6, 1980, Flynn tied a major league record with 3 triples in one game. He also scored on all 3 of those hits. For the week, he batted .419, 13 for 31, with 5 runs scored and 5 RBIs to be named NL Player of the Week. Still, Flynn's greatest contribution to his club was his glove. His .991 fielding percentage was tops in the league and earned him the National League Gold Glove Award at second base. He was just the third Met ever to receive this honor, including Tommy Agee in 1970 and Bud Harrelson in 71 being the first 2. So again, he was impressing a lot of people. It's ironically the media was really on their side. Now, this where the controversy came in. Flynn signed a new 5-year deal before the '81 season, but did not prevent it from being his last as a Met. With top prospect Wally Backman ready to make a jump to the majors, or as what I call the '86 title team, the start of it, the Mets traded Flynn to the Rangers with Dan Boitano for Jim Kern at the end of the season. Kern was then packaged with Greg Harris and Alex Trevino for George Foster from the Cincinnati Reds. Kind of ironic, don't you think? Now, just prior to the start of the '82 season, the Rangers traded triumphant but incumbent second baseman Bub Wills to the Chicago Cubs, opening the starting job for Flynn. As the season wore on, rookie prospect Mike Rickard began getting the bulk of the playing time at second, with Flynn splitting his time between second and short. The Montreal Expos had used 7 different players at second base and were in desperate need of an upgrade at that position when he purchased Flynn's contract from Texas on August 2nd. He held a starting second base job at the Expos through '84. At the '84 winter meetings, the Expos acquired third baseman Vance Law for the Chicago White Sox. Law had also played some second and was a shortstop in the minors. The intention was to convert him to a second baseman in Montreal. Once the experiment proved successful, the Expos placed Flynn on waivers. Now, and he was now, though the Houston Astros expressed interest, he ended up signing with the Tigers for the remainder of the '86 season. He retired from baseball when the Tigers released him in spring training the following season. After retirement, Flynn shortly took up slow pitch softball, playing on several traveling tournament teams in the late '80s or early '90s. So 1,308 games, 918 hits, 238 average, 7 home runs, 284 RBIs. But like I said, a good, solid team player. Now, of course, Flynn's talent runs in the family. Flynn's father, Bobby, was a second baseman in the Brooklyn Dodgers organization in '48 and later played semi-pro ball with the Lexington Hustlers. While his son was coming up through the Reds minor league system, Bobby was also climbing politically, serving as Kentucky state senator. His mother also played second base and fast-pitch softball for years. After retirement from baseball, Flynn spent a couple of years working the Mets minor league system. He then headed up to the state of Kentucky's anti-drug program. Now, Flynn's younger sister, Melanie, went missing in '77 at the age of 24, has not been heard from since. The case is heavily featured in the 1990 book, The Bluegrass Conspiracy. Now, his wife, Olga, is a former Philadelphia Eagles cheerleader, whom he was set up with by Pete Rose. They were married in February '82, and they currently live in Lexington. Doug has been a banking officer for Central Bank, a locally owned independent bank, since 1998. Now, in '81, Flynn started up a different career. He began singing country songs at Cody's, a club at 6th Avenue and 16th Street in Manhattan, on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights. When baseball went on strike in '81, Flynn traveled briefly with the Oak Ridge Boys and sang on tour with them. He still loves to sing and pairs up with former Reds teammate Johnny Bench at a successful golf tournament every year on Cabaret Night. He still attends both New York Mets and Cincinnati Reds reunion events, including serving as the chairman of Reds Fantasy Camp and guests for the Mets camp. Now, in early 2010, he faced a bout with thyroid cancer. He took my thyroid out, and it did a little damage to my voice box, but I'm doing good. Flynn said later that year his voice giving away little of what had happened to him. Now, beginning in 2013, Flynn worked as a part-time radio broadcaster for the Reds, filling in for several games a year when one of their regular competitive broadcasters had some time off. He also appears periodically on Reds TV broadcasts on Fox Sports Ohio, hosting feature segments. Flynn also appears on Kentucky Wildcats baseball games carried on the SEC Network and the SEC Network Plus. Since 2015, Flynn has also hosted Kentucky Life, a weekly half-hour magazine program on Kentucky educational television. So, not only a Renaissance man, the guy could do everything, and I think Doug Flynn is probably as underappreciated as a lot of people can go, because he did what he needed to do. Sure, he didn't have any home run power, but I mean, he had speed, he had an occasion to be part of history, and he always was dedicated to the teams he played for. I know in Montreal, a lot of people felt he didn't get a full shot, because we thought when he showed up in Montreal, he was going to be, somebody we can rely on for like would not say a pennant drive, but at least a divisional drive. But I mean, I see Doug Flynn as, again, one of the most underrated players I ever covered in my career, and I still think he should be saluted, and that's why we're doing our podcast. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing with our Cincinnati Reds and Montreal Expos Vintage Podcast, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share. And don't forget, celebrate the new year by stopping by and checking out our archives. We have over 3,000 podcasts here, and if you don't like it, request it, and if you request it, it will be highly considered. Thanks for listening. Bye.